We are live tonight. Welcome to the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Joe Rayo on the left. I'm Joe Chaffee, and it's windy out, Joe. First of all, it poured here all day. Poured.
Yep.
I haven't seen what the final numbers from MacArthur are at 8 o'clock, but I gotta think we got every bit of at least an inch and a quarter to an inch and a half of rain, maybe even more than that. And now the wind is kicked up with the extratropical Zeta uh, moving off the New Jersey coast, and we're every bit of northeast at 20 to 30 here with some higher gusts. And I'm inland. I'm up toward the North Shore, so I thinking if it was down closer to the South Shore here on Long Island, the winds must be kicking up pretty good.
Not overly windy here, Joe. In fact, what we have out here up here in Putnam Valley right now is a very steady light drizzle. And again, I wouldn't even call it breezy. A little, I was thinking that once Zeta moved off to our south, maybe perhaps as it moved over that lower and middle 60s ocean water, it might actually pump up a little bit and see a little bit more in the way of rain and maybe even a rumble or two or grumble or two of thunder. You're getting the gusty and strong winds because you're, of course, down by the water or down by the coast. But inland here, not all that much. I mean, just again, a steady light drizzle, a little bit of a breeze, but nothing that we can't handle, thankfully, because the last thing I'd want right now is to lose power. By the way, about a half an hour ago, our lights flickered not once, not twice, but three times. And Renan and I looked at each other and said, "Uh-oh, here we go." But keep your fingers crossed. Knock on wood. Everything will be fine from here on. We hope.
All right. We've got some snow in the forecast, thanks to low number two that's going to be developing right about the same spot that Zeta was an hour or so ago off the Delaware, South Jersey coast, and it's going to follow right behind it. Cold air coming in, a widespread freeze tomorrow night as we kick off the weekend. We're going to look at that, the long range, and of course, first things first, what's going to happen for the rest of tonight and tomorrow. We'll take a look at the tropics. As is another system that might be getting ready. We'll see, or at least might be in the next 5 days. Our Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by the wonderful folks at Omni True Value Hardware in West Babylon, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. They've got rock salt, straight salt bag, geomelt, biomelt, mulch. When it's not wintertime, you can go there to get your gardening stuff, mulch, recycling, topsoil, gravel, and more. No matter what the size of your fleet or whether it's just you need winter weather equipment, Omni True Value Hardware will meet your needs, serving the Long Island and New York City area. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125, or go to the website, omnitruevalue.com. And Mr. Rayo, as we get things going, looking at winter weather advisories, they're not up for much of the area where you reside or where I reside, but the northern half of Connecticut is in it, and I thought that that was close enough. And they've got winter weather advisories there. Most of the state of Massachusetts, southern and southwestern New Hampshire, and much of southern and central Vermont. No advisories are up on the New York State side, at least not yet, and they may not need them. I'm thinking, I was thinking on the order that this was where in the coldest spots in some elevated areas where it could be a coating to maybe a couple of slushy inches. And I'm still thinking along those lines. I don't see, other than some wet snowflakes maybe mixing in south of Route 84 down to about North Jersey, New York City, maybe to Long Island. I could see a couple of wet snowflakes in the mix, but that'll be about it.
And it makes you wonder, Joe, whether or not this particular date on the calendar,
It's
October
cursed.
the 29th, is cursed
Yeah.
weather-wise for us. I mean, it has been an infamous day so far as stormy weather here in the tri-state area is concerned. 2011, I remember 2011, 14 inches of heavy wet snow falling on my property here in Putnam County. It was also snowy down to New York. 2.9 inches of snow, wet snow that accumulated in Central Park, the most ever to fall in the month of October. And right across the river, Newark, New Jersey, 5.2 inches of snow fell. And of course, a foot buried northern New Jersey and portions of the Hudson Valley in Connecticut, western Massachusetts. Then just 1 year later, on the same date in 2012, unbelievably, an even more devastating storm. That, of course, was Superstorm Sandy. It struck between noon and midnight. We all remember that. And it more than lived up to its hype, although the rain was not really the issue like Irene in 2011. Only, well, actually less than an inch fell. It did carry with it 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, record storm surge, wreak havoc on New York transportation and power grid. And not only did the storm surge strike at high tide, but also at a full moon, resulting in literally a perfect storm in terms of flooding never before experienced in Manhattan.
While you were talking about Sandy, I just had let's just take a step back, because I did pull up the surface map for Saturday, October 29th, 2011, which you would think it was a December map, where you had a 996 low sitting east of the Delaware coast and south of Montauk. Those lovely northeasterly isobars over us with a bit of a gradient. And it's a little hard to see, but looking at the temperatures, now this was at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, up in upstate New York, New England, everybody in the 30s. So there was some pretty cold, there was some cold air. There was a cold high in southeastern Canada. It would take me too long to pull up the upper air features, but suffice to say that you did have a more vigorous upper air feature than you do with what we have coming up for late tonight and tomorrow. So that's the reason why we're going to see more out of we saw more out of the one from October 29th of 2011 than we are going to see from the one going on for tonight. And I'll just go back to 2012 so we can take a look at what the day of Sandy, and that's a surface map, Joe. You had a 944. At this point, this was post-tropical. You had a 944 millibar low sitting southeast of Atlantic City. I mean, did you ever in your life think that you ever would have seen something that intense from the standpoint of pressure? And clearly, at this stage, this was a post-tropical cyclone, but it was and is in the record books, and it was a generational event for this part of the Northeast, and it'll be remembered for a long, long time.
Many storms have had perhaps a bit lower barometric pressure or even stronger winds circulating around the center, but those storms took the classic track being from, let's say, Cape Hatteras or off of Cape Hatteras up to past Cape Cod. This storm took a turn thanks to
I'm rolling it back so you can see it. Now go ahead. I'm going to move it.
Thanks to an unusual, very strongly negative NAO, which helped to drive that storm inland across South and Central Jersey off to the south of New York, and we got those very strong winds from a totally different direction. Normally, we get the winds in a hurricane from, let's say, the northeast. This storm brought the winds in on an east or maybe even an east-southeasterly direction, devastating the south shore of Long Island, destroying much of Jones Beach. The Jones Beach Theater had to be fixed up in the aftermath of the storm, causing all kinds of problems at Rye and Rye Playland in Westchester County, southern Westchester. This was an amazing system. We often refer to it not so much because it was the strongest we've ever seen, but just because of the path, Superstorm Sandy. And now, Joe, since you're playing around with the maps, do you remember 5 years later in 2017, you and I were working at FiOS One News at the time. I don't know if you remember. I just don't remember this one, but
The
on
severe
the fifth,
weather event.
on the fifth anniversary of Superstorm Sandy, an intense nor'easter, October 29, 2017, lashing our area with gusty winds, an all-day rain that
All right,
amounted
I
to
got the
over.
map up. Hang on one second. I'm just gonna let me roll it through. I see it in its formative stages here. It was a Sunday, low
Okay,
in
so this,
central North Carolina. So I also remember a severe weather event in the last 5 years, sometime in the last 5 years on October 29th.
well, I remember our last
Well,
Halloween together last year. We had flood watches and tornado watches and all kinds of craziness, and it was something like 70 or 75 degrees with dew points near 70 on
yes, it was
Halloween 1 year
disgusting.
ago.
That was disgusting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
there was a 977. Whoops, I lost it here. Hang on, let me bring it back. The 29th, 2017, you said, right?
correct.
All right, so searching, forever searching. All right, so there it is. In the Sunday evening, it was sitting off the North Carolina coast, and then intensified to a 980 low that came right up into New York Harbor by
Right.
11 o'clock that night.
I don't
On the
understand why
night 11 o'clock on the 9th of the 29th, 3Z on the 30th.
they didn't call, I guess, either one of us in
Thank
to watch
God.
Sunday. But it was an intense nor'easter, lashed the area, gusty winds, and all-day rain amounting to 3.03 inches at Central Park. More rain that had fallen in the past or the previous 60 days, and the biggest rainstorm of the year, surpassing the rainstorm of May 2nd, 2017, by just 1/100th of an inch. And
Yep.
somebody else, a friend of mine, Mark Mailhot, who is up in Maine, he threw in one other thing for this date, October 29th, 1963.
All right. I don't know.
And
I can't go that far back.
okay, well, he mentions that we had well, we didn't, but he mentions that Hurricane Ginny passed into the Gulf of Maine with heavy rain, gusty winds,
That
cold
was the
air,
one. I think that was the one that changed it. They had heavy snow out of that.
cold air advection on the
Yes.
backside of the circulation, dropped over a foot of snow in Maine and the New Hampshire mountains. And he says how well I remember tracking that storm after the loop. It performed the loop that it performed off of the southeast coastline. So that too, on this day, October 29th, but 1963. And
And we were just youngins at that time.
John Kennedy was still alive. Well,
Yeah.
he'd be alive for another 24 days.
Right.
So
We're gonna bring us back to present time here. So let's see what's going on. We're gonna see what's going on tonight, and we do have winter weather advisories. Joe Rayo's monitoring the chat board as always, and if you've got things to say, well, say them on the chat board. If you got questions, leave them there, and we will try to address them right here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And
Adam Lowe on the chat board, where are we looking for trouble? GFS has another hurricane in the Gulf a week from Sunday.
right, no, I did see that before we went on the air. We'll get to that. Patience,
Okay,
everybody. So
all right.
winter weather advisories up. As we said, for the northern Connecticut, Massachusetts, into southern New Hampshire and southern and central Vermont. The next low is getting underway, and as we look at the satellite loop, Joe, it's hard now to tell if it wasn't. We've just gone to the enhanced, the actual circulation. I mean, you kind of look at this and you would think that it's with all those bright white clouds that are already out south and east of Cape Cod, but in reality, when we look at the surface, I'll bring up the surface map. It's actually still back closer to the coast. It's sort of uh, getting stretched out. So it really it is extratropical now. It is no. It's lost its definition. And of course, you see how far back the clouds go back into the Ohio Valley. There is another. The short wave and the southern stream system are moving eastward, and this is going to be producing more rain here as we go into the overnight hours. There's a bit of a break The first batch is going out or has pretty much gone out in most places. But you see there's rain back through western Pennsylvania, down through Ohio, southern Indiana, southern Illinois. That's going to be with the next low as it pivots eastward, and we'll probably see some precip develop near the coast during the overnight as well and move northeastward. So still more work to do, and now we've got colder air. The one good thing, Joe, out of this is, and this was a bit of a surprise, a small surprise, but the northern extent of the precipitation shield got well up into southern Vermont and New Hampshire, and even into southwest Maine. Some of the heavier rains got up into that region, so it'll be interesting to see what the final amounts are up there. But I mentioned that because, in particular, for southern and southeastern New England, um, a little bit of a bonus today with the rainfall amounts. I'm guessing from what I saw on the radar from earlier, they should have done relatively well with this, and we are focusing on that because of the fact that they do have a severe drought condition throughout much of New England.
Right, and they could certainly use the moisture, and they're getting it, and they will continue to get it. One thing that I did not anticipate, Joe, is and I don't know if what we have out there right now outside my home is qualifying as a lull. I guess you could call it that, the steady light drizzle. But there is a lull. I mean, it's a lull between steadier and heavier rain. I would have thought we would have had light rain, continuous right on through the night, and maybe even a few spurts of heavier as the second system got its act together off the mid-Atlantic coast toward daybreak. It looks like there's going to be a bit of a lull for the next several hours moving in from the west, and then we'll prepare for the second shot from that second system later tonight and early tomorrow. And again, that's a system that will pull down, it will pull down enough cold air to make it mix with or even change to wet snow. Although again, the immediate tri-state area, I don't anticipate any accumulations. It'd be fun to see. It'd be a cheap thrill, but
Right.
it doesn't look like it's going to happen.
South Seaside Park in New Jersey is gusting to 41 right now. A little bit further south at North Beach Haven in New Jersey, gusting to 36. We have Bowie 44065, which is south of Jones Beach by not that far. Is 34 gusting to 42. The one a little bit further out south of Fire Island by about 20 miles, 44025, is gusting to 47. Ocean water temperatures there are being reported in the low 60s. The winds in New Jersey have gone north-northeast or north, and some gusts into the 20s inland. There's really not a whole lot of wind going on in inland areas, but there's a northerly wind there. The sea level pressures are down in the zone of about 995. Atlantic City reporting a 995 pressure with a north-northwest wind. So the low center is now is offshore and moving away. So it's taking that first round of rain with it. That's what what remains of Zeta, and also up to the north. Just want to start paying a little closer attention to some of the temperatures that are up here in upstate New York and in northern Connecticut. We're just seeing a couple of 30s showing up in a few places, but it's still mostly in the 40s. So the cold air really hasn't moved in yet. Stamford, New York is at 38. Halcott Center is at 38. Albany is at 40. It's mostly low 40s up in western New York, a couple of upper 30s starting to pop up there too. So we're still waiting for that cold air from the northern Great Lakes, and in southeastern Canada will start bleeding southward. Once that second low gets going and the first low gets out far enough, that's when we're going to start to see that cold air advance southward. And of course, this is going to mean for some snow. And on the 21Z map, we can go to the latest map and bring that up. And it will show you that at least at 5 o'clock this afternoon, the Zeta low was near Dover, Delaware. And again, extratropical. Whenever you see a tropical system, you do not see fronts with them. Okay, when they become post-tropical, it's because you can define a warm sector and a cold sector. And there's another front being analyzed south of Albany. So that's if you want to call it the leading edge of the cold air. The colder air is actually a bit further north and west than that. It just needs that mechanism, that next wave, and that wave, by the way, is already in southeastern Kentucky, a 990 low there, and that's going to eventually redevelop off the Delaware coast early tomorrow morning, and that is the snow producer. So we could take a look. I'm going to bring up the forecast amounts. I really don't disagree too much with the what the Weather Service did with their snow amounts. I think they seem pretty fair. So there's not there's nothing here for me to criticize. Let's put it that way. And taking a look at what they're going for, it really hasn't changed very much in terms of the numbers. A couple of spots have been edged a little higher, a couple of spots have been edged a little lower. You can see where the southern fringe of this gets. The lightest blue probably implies snow that at worst leaves a coating in some places. And in the darker blues, you start to see some 2 and 3 inch amounts up in the Berkshires and on up into Vermont. And also up in parts of the Catskills. I think that's where you're going to see this snow pretty much play out. Everybody else, especially on the southern flank of this, I think where they have those winter weather advisories, you're looking at mostly a coating to an inch, maybe in some of the higher spots about 2. So um, manageable, and I really don't see a whole lot of upside here. It's not like if we were dealing with a vigorous upper air system and the potential for a really impressive looking radar. I could be talked into pushing numbers up, but I'm really not seeing that.
I think that we're going to see wet snow at least as far down south as 287, Interstate 287. We often use that as the boundary zone in the Hudson Valley for or the dividing line between not so significant versus possibly significant snowfall during the winter. So I think anywhere north of 287 tomorrow morning, we'll probably see some wet snow mixing in with the rain and maybe a total changeover. But I really think you're going to have to go way north, even further north than the I-84 corridor before you begin to be concerned about any kind of significant snow accumulation. I mean, I know that some of the models have pumped out like 2 and 3 inches for Newburgh, for example, and that's not too far from where I am, or maybe an inch or two for Poughkeepsie. But really, I would think that you're going to have to go up north, up toward, as your map shows from the Weather Service, let's say in the higher elevation, higher terrain areas of Hunter Mountain, or up toward Grafton. Even Albany gets less than an inch, it appears. So this doesn't look like a major event. And Joe, I think overall for the Hudson Valley, at least, I've got the snow or whatever precip falls ending by noon. Maybe if you want to stick your neck way out or push the envelope, maybe not winding down until 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but certainly by mid-afternoon, it's all over. Maybe we'll end the day with a poke or two of sun. I'm not sure about rapid clearing. On the NAM, the FOOS 61 for LaGuardia keeps the relative humidity, the low level relative humidity, rather high through even into tomorrow night. So maybe just slow clearing tomorrow night, but by Saturday, I think we'll be out in bright sunny weather. Enough sunshine, we may get back up into the mid and upper 40s. That'll be the cold day of the weekend. And then ahead of the next vigorous cold front on Sunday, jumping up to into the 50s. Don't get used to that. Behind that next front for the start of next week, it's going to turn windy. It's going to turn cold once again.
And I just ran through the snow maps while you were talking about that. Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these numbers, uh, even up back over in areas toward Oneonta, Cooperstown, Binghamton, really not showing anything all that impressive. And from the weather prediction folks from WPC, this is through tomorrow morning. The probability of greater than an inch of snow really kind of confined. If you want to use, I would say use the 60% line, which is the not the brightest blue, but the next color down, as maybe the best chances that you could wind up with an inch or so. If I switched it over to the probability of greater than 2, which is perhaps maybe a little bit more meaningful for tomorrow morning. There you go. The dark blue 40% would probably be, well, I'd say probably the 50% line might be a good indicator of where you could wind up with 2. And you'll notice that even on the 1 inch or the 2 inch, that southern flank really doesn't get very far south. So this will just be the first, maybe they'll call it a cheap thrill for the folks inland up in New England, and we'll leave it at that. And then we'll move along to the colder air that's going to be coming for Saturday morning. They've already got freeze warnings up for southern New Jersey and parts Maryland and Delaware. They have a freeze watch up for Long Island back to northern New Jersey. I think you're going to see that all get filled in with a few more areas. So let's jump to the new NAM from late this afternoon, and we should have been 6 o'clock this evening with the low east of Atlantic City. You see it just kind of moves away. First batch of precip is out. The second one starts to move in. NAM seems to have a little bit more than what's on the radar overhead, whereas the radar showing that there is this sort of pause. Maybe there's some light, spotty light rain underneath the radar beam that it's not picking up. But you see that second area of rain start to blossom overnight. And also the blues start showing up around midnight in the upper Hudson Valley. And then by tomorrow morning, so we are now at 5 a.m., the blue area is getting a little bit more significant. But Joe, it never really blossom. When you start to get into December in a situation like this, when you have enough cold air, you usually see that snow area just really blossom out.
Right.
And it's not doing that. I mean, there's some, but it's nothing to write home about. And here, this is at 8 a.m., starting to change over across much of Connecticut, taking it over till about noon and 1 o'clock. It's just about done in the Hudson Valley. There's still some rain going on over Long Island and a little patchy rain in New Jersey, some snow in southern and southeastern New England. And then, of course, that low now at this point by later tomorrow afternoon is almost off the map. It's running out pretty quickly to the east-northeast. And then finally, all the precipitation is gone. And then the cold high takes over after that. So it's a really pretty straightforward scenario here. I'm going to widen out so we can take a look at what's going on elsewhere in the United States, or what will be going on elsewhere in the United States. So we'll let the surface maps load. I'm going to just switch real quick to the watches and warnings on weather.gov so we can look at what's happening here. And it's actually fairly quiet in most places. I think there's still some residual, I don't know if that's still a wind advisory up for parts of North Georgia. When I checked the obs when I got up this morning, Joe, the first observation I looked at was Atlanta, Georgia, where they actually still have a wind advisory going. They were 31 gusting to 51. Those winds stayed pretty strong with Zeta well inland, and they were still carrying 50-mile-an-hour sustained winds with the low when it was moving through northern Georgia and into western North Carolina. There were some rather gusty winds throughout much of the southeast and also through the Carolinas, particularly along coastal North Carolina and southern Virginia when the low started translating to the east. A pretty interesting storm from start to finish, really, when you think about it.
Kind of surprised that our own National Weather Service office here in New York or even Philadelphia didn't issue any kind of a wind advisory, at least for the coastal locations. They do have, I believe, gale warnings up.
Yeah, gales are up.
But nothing in terms of inland.
It just
wind.
doesn't. The obs just don't show anything. It doesn't show anything really all that extraordinary in the inland spots right now.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, for lower Westchester, south of 287, for you certainly, you said it was rather windy.
Yeah, I mean it's 20. I'm getting some gusts into the 30s, but I'm not exactly. It's not howling.
But still, I think better safe than sorry. I mean, until Zeta, post-tropical cyclone Zeta, as they're officially calling it now at the National Hurricane Center, until it gets farther away to the north and east. Just for the sake of being safe, I think I would have put some kind of a wind advisory up, just because you never know. You can get one of those rogue 45 or 50 mile an hour gusts sometimes. And again, I would have thought that the storm, once it got its feet wet again out over the Atlantic Ocean, the water temperature is not warm anymore, but it's still in the low to mid 60s, and that's warmer than I'm sure the land areas that it's been traversing
Yeah.
over the last 12 or 18 hours.
Well,
So
it may get a little juice as it gets out, a little bit more baroclinic intensification going on. Here's your upper troughs that with the next system. Again, if it was a little bit more vigorous, if that northern stream would have phased a bit more with the south, but it never really does that. It remains rather broad here as it goes through the area tomorrow. You'll see there's actually one short wave. The southern part of it kind of gets lost. The northern part of it is split in two, so it's a little bit disorganized here. That goes out, and of course we'll have a decent weekend overall. But then here comes this next trough that drops in for Sunday and Sunday night. This is a very vigorous upper trough that's moving through here
right.
early, at least according to the NAM. It's a nice looking trough. And that is good. I think we're going to probably see some showers here Sunday evening.
I think we may see something by as early as Sunday afternoon.
Could be.
It's not out of the question, but it's moving so fast too that whatever we get out of it will be through and ended maybe by Monday morning. Then look at that gradient. Look at that direction, that gusty upper level northwesterly or northwesterly flow, which is really going to push the temperatures down again for the beginning of next week. And looks like
that's a really that is a really strong cold flow coming down out of Canada.
So it looks like we're going to get a cold Halloween. And it looks like it's going to be a cold election day on Tuesday.
Yeah, but for the most part, next week actually looks pretty quiet from the weather standpoint. I'll just back it up so we can take you through the weekend. And of course, that next cold front is accompanied by a strong low that moves across southern Canada. A lot of isobars there. So it'll start to get breezy during the day Sunday from the southwest, and then I don't know, Joe. You look at the GFS, it might even pop up a thunderstorm there over Long Island Thursday evening. I'm sorry, Sunday evening as the front goes by. Yeah, again, that's a strong front. Remember, I'm trying to remember back early in October, did we not have something similar where we had this really strong front with a deep trough?
I think so. Yeah.
The air was not really, it wasn't, we had a couple of severe weather episodes, and one in particular. I'm not saying that this is not going to be a severe weather event, but the sheer strength of the trough and all that cold air makes you wonder whether we might hear a rumble or two of thunder when that front goes by. And then it's going to be breezy to downright windy at times on Monday. That gradient's pretty tight here, and a little bit of lake effect action will be taking place also. Monday night to Tuesday looks like a little disturbance drops southward from upstate New York. And this might be the one way it keeps us from getting too cold, in that we may have some clouds and perhaps maybe even a rain, or who knows, maybe even a snow shower in some places. Little low forms in the Gulf of Maine. But after Tuesday, we're going to warm up rather nicely, I think, for the middle and latter part of next week. And what's going to make this a bit different than what we just experienced is the fact that the high is going to be centered in Virginia, at least into Thursday. So I think we're going to have more of a west or a west-southwest wind rather than something with a marine influence like we had and keeping us in clouds all day long. I think it'll be a much better scenario this time around. And Joe, the other thing is with the ridge building in the eastern part of the United States, we may have to wait until a week from, I don't know, we may have to wait beyond next weekend and into the following week before we even have any chance of another round of significant rain. And yeah, at this point, you can see that the GFS does produce another hurricane, although now we're into day 11, so who knows if that's going to be there. But it does have something there, and the GFS has been better at these tropical systems this year than the other models have. So I want to give it a little bit of credit. and might be worth paying attention to.
Yes, we'll certainly
And
see.
it
And
is
I
2020, so why wouldn't you pay attention to
yeah,
it?
I
And
agree with you. I agree with you on the big warm up. I've got on my Hudson Valley temperatures. I've got for election day. I've got 46 for a high. On Wednesday, a significant warm air advection. And so while we'll have sunshine, I think on Wednesday, lots of high and thin clouds. It'll be the first signs of the big warm up. So I jump it from 46 on Tuesday, next Tuesday, to 56 on Wednesday. And a week from now, on Thursday of next week, we might have temperatures right through the entire area in the mid 60s. And dare I say, we might even go a few degrees warmer than that for Friday and the first full weekend of November. And yeah, it's going to be a while before we get into a another pattern of wet weather. It looks like we've got
right.
protracted dry weather through much of next week into the first full weekend of November, and maybe even beyond.
The Hurricane Center, by the way, is now taking this disturbance that they're indicating to move into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, now raising it to a 70% chance of developing in the next 5 days, and a tropical depression likely to form sometime next week as the system heads towards the western part of the Caribbean Sea, where conditions are going to be favorable for a tropical cyclone development. So that, if it does wind up happening, as that will be the one that ties the record for 2005. So that would be storm number 28,
Ada,
if that's the case. Ada.
Ada.
What's after Ada? Theta?
I didn't want to look beyond Ada. I was hoping that Zeta would be the last one.
No, it
This is
doesn't
never
look
going to
like
end.
it. And
This is never going to end.
no, it never is. I'm going to bring the upper air up for North America so we can take a look at the long range and see what's going on here. And by the way, you can roll. I'll roll it back on this view. I'm not going to rather than change to the Atlantic view, and you can see where it comes from. Going back to let's see. So now we're at Friday. So this is that tropical wave moves across the Caribbean, gets into the Southwest Caribbean. Now you can make a case for this to go straight west into Central America, and some of the prior GFS runs did that. This particular one has decided that it's going to try to turn it more north or northeast, which, by the way, climatologically is the other option here. Either they move straight west or they tend to move northeast. Usually they don't go northwest into the Gulf of Mexico, and so now watch, it'll go into the northwest into the Gulf of Mexico. But this is what this particular run did, and you guys can take a look at it at Tropical Tidbits. I wouldn't, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in it. Uh, Beyond the fact that I think there's the probability that we'll wind up getting another named storm out of this before it's all said and done. But when we
By the
look at
way,
the,
by the way, after Ada comes Theta.
I thought so.
So
Now, people are going to be upset that they have Zeta, Eta, and Theta. But think about it. Someone's going to tell you, why did they have to use those names that all sound the same? Because it sounds like one storm.
and beyond that, after we have Theta, we have Iota.
I don't give one iota what we have after that. You know, what's that? Phi beta, phi. What is it? Phi beta. What's
What are you talking
the
about? A fraternity?
fraternity? Yeah, Phi beta kappa.
Right.
Right. Nice. Kappa's in there somewhere. All right. So the bottom line with the long range, folks, and you're seeing what's happening now, of course. The sharp upper trough that goes through early next week. Once that lifts out, we go into a pretty much westerly flow. If you look at this for the middle part of next week, this is the day after Election Day, this is next Wednesday. You can draw a straight line from 160 west, almost virtually a straight line from 160 west to New York City. I mean, we're basically getting, it's not quite a Pacific fire hose because you do have a trough that's going to cut off and drop down to north of Hawaii. But it does create a rather warmish flow into the eastern part of the United States. And in fact, by next weekend, you got a nice big upper high sitting in the eastern part of the United States with a deep trough in the west. And that's probably why you're seeing this tropical system responding to that really deep trough in the west and the far north position of the ridge in the east. So it does seem to have a little bit of an opening there to move northward. That trough lifts up and out and going on to the longer range. Well, I hesitate to say this, but and it's only on this run, but you do have a blockier look at the end of the period. Whether it winds up being true or not remains to be seen. And also remember what just happened with Epsilon. We had a negative NAO working along with a whole bunch of other things in the atmosphere that looked like we were going to get into a cold pattern, and Epsilon formed, and it just absolutely destroyed the entire upper air pattern across the North Atlantic and through a good chunk of North America while it was at it. So there's still too many tropical variables in the mix that could come along and change all this. But just to give you, this is just a hint, and it'll probably be gone in the next run. So bottom line is, after whatever goes on between now and Monday with the next cold front, after that, looks like we're going to have a quiet 7 or 8 days. And
So, well, why don't we just take those 7 and 8 days off then, if there's not going to be anything to talk about?
only if I have a place to go will I take those 7 or 8 days off.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, yes, indeed, we shall. So, how's about a little bit of Briller Jeopardy? Mr. Briller is out working tonight, so he's doing his COVID runs. Thank God he's recovered. We're so happy for that, and that his mom is okay too. So that's a good thing. So just be safe out there, Scotty. And let me see if I can get questions. We're running like a day behind because we wound up splitting one of those days in two. So I've just got to give me a moment here to scroll back. Okay. So today's category, Mr. Rayo, is the 1980s.
Okay. The 80s.
All right. So I'm going to also, since we are now full screen, the answers are on another. He sends the answers on my weather platform, my Patreon weather platform. So I got to go in there, and it's the secret place. So hang on one
Like the
second.
Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, exactly. For myself and my members, I guess. Let me get the messages, and then I'll get you the questions. All right, it's taking a little bit of round and round the circle of death goes, and round and round and round. Come on. I'll ask you the questions. By that time, they should have been loaded. So the first question is, what was the top five? What were the top five selling arcade games of the 1980s?
Oh, well, what am I going to say? Pac-Man,
Pac-Man,
Super Mario.
Super Mario.
He's a dork. I don't know.
No, then there was the one that I used to play, and I can visualize it in my head, but I don't.
Frogger?
No, I don't think that's what it was called. It sucks getting old. It really does. What was I can actually see it. You had these what looked like tanks. They would come down, and you had to shoot them, fire them off.
My son probably could answer this question.
Here we go. So I'm getting the answers right now. Are you ready?
Yes.
Space Invaders. That's what it was. Space Invaders. Okay. Pac-Man. Space Invaders was number 2. Donkey Kong.
Donkey Kong, yes.
Was number 3. Ms. Pac-Man was number 4.
Ms. Pac-Man, yep.
And Asteroids.
Asteroids, really?
I don't remember Asteroids.
I don't remember that either.
Okay, so
Super Mario was not anywhere to be found. I thought that was a big. Really?
I guess not.
Okay.
What was the best-selling music, or who was the best-selling music artist of the 1980s? That's fairly easy.
Is it?
It should be. He's dead.
John Denver?
Okay, no. Try again.
I know it wasn't Harry Chapin because he died in 1981.
There's
I have no idea, Joe. Who would it be?
Michael Jackson.
Oh, Michael Jackson. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
What was the biggest snowstorm of the 1980s? And I assume he means in New York City, and he does.
In the 1980s, I would think the biggest snowstorm was the megalopolitan storm of 1983, February 11th and 12th, 1983. I think the city got something like 22 inches out of that.
Yeah, it's a 17.8 here, so I don't know if it was over 2 days. Maybe it got
I
22.
definitely could tell you that JFK. You see, what they were probably doing at the weather services, they were
The
probably
car
measuring
top,
up the top of cars.
right? The car top.
But I know that JFK had something like 21 inches of snow out of that. So
Okay, and the final question is, uh, all right. So what if let's add the total number of days where we had temperatures during the 1980s below zero, and the total number of days that we had temperatures over 100, and
oh,
you come up with how many days?
um, I remember Christmas 1980 was
Minus
very
two.
cold, and
That was -2. I remember that also.
I
And
remember
it
also
snowed the
in
night before.
yeah, and I remember in '83 it was cold. No, but I don't think we got below zero on Christmas in '83. I'll say three.
You needed one more. They had two of each. So the answer was four.
Okay,
Four.
so we topped 100 twice and we went below zero twice.
You are absolutely correct.
I can't even remember the last time Central Park went below zero or went above 100. It's been a while for both, I think.
Uh, yeah, I'm gonna say no. We had below zero a couple of years ago because I went I went up to New Hampshire that weekend where it was -15. So I think it was it 16 or 17? It was Washington's birthday weekend. It was a Sunday,
Okay,
and it got down to minus 1. I
okay,
remember getting into a huge argument with someone who I blocked off my personal and my weather page, um, who said that we would never get below zero. Not only that time, but we would never go below zero in New York City ever again. And I was saying I was going for a low of below zero. And it got there at 7 o'clock in the morning, in the last possible hour it could have hit -1. It hit -1. Some clouds came in at 5. It got to zero, and some clouds came in, and just it stopped at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. It just came to a dead stop, and then the clouds moved out, and the temperature dropped another degree, and I got to the -1. So I not only won that bet, but I blocked him completely off my page after that.
Anthony Orr says 2016 the park went below zero.
That
So
was it. So
maybe,
2016,
yeah,
100. Yeah, 100's been a while. I can't. I don't even remember the last time. I mean, LaGuardia went to 100 that one day that I was screaming about the fact that they had the thermometer. Nobody else got above 95 or 6, and they went to like 101. It was a
yeah,
day in June back a few years ago,
yeah.
but that was it. I was livid that day because that was they were doing all that construction at LaGuardia, between the traffic on the Grand Central Parkway and the jet exhaust blowing right onto the thermometer. How could it not go to 101?
Frank Riccio says 1982 was a bitter winter. The Potomac and Washington froze solid. Very rare down there. Did they not have, I think, some sort of tragedy, aviation tragedy, that there was a plane that crashed into the Potomac during a snowstorm in 1982, early
Uh,
1982?
I don't remember.
I vaguely remember something along those lines. And I do remember that spell of cold and wintry weather, not just down there, but also up here as well. So
All right. Well, thankfully that's not coming anytime soon, so we could be happy about that, and we can say good night. I think at this point, and just again to let you know that the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by True Value True Value Hardware, Long Island's largest rock salt provider. and also largest provider of mag ice melting pellets and flakes. Bless you.
Thank you.
Petalo Premium Snow and Ice Melter, Biomelt and Geomelt, along with spreaders, shovels, snow blowers, and whatever you need. 1226 North Wellwood Avenue, West Babylon, New York, 631-756-1125, or go to the website omnitruevalue.com.
Well, Mr. Briller is on the chat board now, and he says, Joe, next Wednesday will be a special day for the Joe and Joe show. Details next week. I don't know. Is that an anniversary for us that we started doing this
I don't know.
a couple of years ago? I don't know. Scott knows because he keeps track of everything. So
okay,
that's why he's the chairman.
Yeah, no, I have. I don't know. I'm not good with birthdays and anniversaries and things. I barely remember mine.
Yeah.
All right, so
are you going to dance around and do the anniversary?
Yeah. I'll let you know about tomorrow night. I'm actually getting a little bit wiped out this week, so I could use a break. But if we wind up with a little bit of a surprise snow-wise, maybe we'll make an appearance. Otherwise, the next time you will see us will be in a new month, in a new new time zone, because we will be in the Eastern Standard Time zone and no longer in daylight saving time.
Yes, that would be wonderful to get
yes,
everything in an hour earlier, and it'll be wonderful indeed. By the way, first times in 76 years on Saturday, we are going to have a full moon. It's going to be a blue moon.
Yeah, 1944 was the last time we had a full moon on Halloween.
Right. Second full moon of the month. So it's a blue moon, but it's also on Halloween. And I did a survey, Joe. I posted this on my Facebook page. I looked at all of the full moons from 1900 to 2100, a 200-year stretch. And only 8 times out of that 200-year period have we ever had a full moon on Halloween. So it only happens like every 4% of the time. It's
almost a once in a lifetime event.
Well, not necessarily, because now, because of something called the Metonic lunar cycle, the same phase.
Now he's getting political. Go on.
The same phase of the moon recurs, generally speaking, at 19-year intervals on the same day, and that's what's going to happen at 19-year intervals for the rest of this century.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when I'm 80 is the next time we're going to see a full moon on Halloween.
Right, and when you're 99.
And when I'm 99. All right,
we'll have another shot at it.
Somehow I think somewhere between that and full, hopefully I'll make it to that full moon. If I make it to the next one after that, I don't know if we'll still be doing the show then.
Well, the interesting
what? This is Joe Rayo, Joe Chavi.
How you doing, Joe?
Yeah, exactly.
I can put my dentures in this one.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting is that next to Christmas Eve, and you always see in Christmas specials Santa flying off into the sky against the full moon.
So we're gonna have a full moon on Christmas Eve?
Santa, no. Well, I mean, we had, but what I'm saying is that the full moon always seems to be associated with Christmas Eve or Christmas morning. And next to that holiday, it's Halloween. We all remember in The Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, that one moment where Linus and Sally, Charlie Brown's sister, are freezing in the pumpkin patch waiting for the great pumpkin. And then all of a sudden, silhouetted against the light of a full moon is not the great pumpkin, but Snoopy rising out of the pumpkin patch. By the way, would not be, unless you're a subscriber, I think, to
Apple TV, yeah.
Apple TV, you're not seeing that show on anymore on regular television. Isn't that wonderful? You think, I'm wondering whether or not if Charles Schultz was alive, he would have allowed that to happen. But
well, you know what, Joe? So many people actually, so a lot of people have Apple TV, and I don't know. I guess for those of us that are our age, we find it distressing. For the younger folks, they'll who knows if they'll even watch it.
I presume that also is going to include a Charlie Brown Christmas, which is another staple of the holidays. Hey, what the heck? As long as we still have Rudolph and Frosty, I don't care.
Well, yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts.
Yes, we'll see.
All right. Everybody have a great night. Stay safe, and thanks for being here as always on a nightly basis. We love that you come back every day. And now we're getting into the winter months, so we're going to have some fun when these, when these snowstorms start becoming more of a regular thing. In the meantime, enjoy, and we will probably not see you again until Sunday on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time.
Unless we get a Gomer pile.
Right, unless we get a Gomer pile moment
In
tomorrow.
which case, if I wake up tomorrow morning and I see 4 inches of snow outside my window,
which you won't,
I'm going to hear in the back of my mind Jim Neighbors, the late Jim Neighbors, saying, "Surprise, surprise, surprise."
Good night, everyone.